Welcome to a guide on how to start journaling. So, I had many creative hobbies as a kid, drawing, painting, knitting, crochet, you name it. And while I still do a lot of these things to this day, I think journaling has been one of the only things I've done really consistently because there's just so much freedom for you to experiment and try different styles and find something that works for you. And also, I think it's just nice since it serves as a way to remember what happened in the past when you may have forgotten a few years later. So, your journal can be big or small, handmade or store bought, hardcover or spiral bound. But regardless of what you choose, an empty journal is a space for you to do whatever you want in, such as simply writing your thoughts out each day. Throughout middle school, I used to bring these little small pocket-sized notebooks with me to class, and I would write in them during passing time when I had no one to talk to. And I think that that's like one of the reasons why I've continued journaling is just because I've made it so easy and accessible that I was just able to build a habit. So obviously my favorite journals I keep are my creative journals, where I like to collage and add pictures and document about my life. But even those I keep very low key and I don't really stress myself too out with like perfection or making all my pages look good. Because, sometimes with our busy lives, it can be difficult to find times to create such like beautiful and immaculate spreads. And sometimes I just want to quickly stick something down and be done with it. Another tip I would have to start journaling is to just start very simple and start with what you have. My first journal, which I consider the start of this like obsession, is a blank composition notebook that I got at my school fair in elementary school. And obviously me being like 10, I wasn't really sure what I was doing. I just had this blank notebook and I was like, okay, I want to do something cool with this. And so I would stick down like random sticky note messages me and my friends would send to each other. I stuck down like some of my art projects from school and I just printed out pictures that I thought were nice and I stuck them in. And I would do this all very randomly and haphazardly, but this remains one of my favorite journals because I wasn't really aware of like social media and I didn't really have anything to compare myself to. And obviously it's nice to find inspiration, but I feel like oftentimes now it's too easy to get carried away with like, oh, this person's spreads look so aesthetic and I want mine to look like that. When really journaling is just for you, it's a place for you to have fun and a place for you to enjoy. So eventually I started making my own journals, and this is what I do to this day. I just really enjoy the process of making my own journals. I find that it's just very fun and I enjoy working in the journals that I make since they bring me a sense of joy. My first journal I ever made for myself was made entirely out of bits of scrap paper and magazines. And I didn't have any glue, so I made it out of scotch tape and scrap pieces of embroidery thread. And this journal also is one of my favorite journals I've ever made. It just because I was able to use materials in a very different way that I would not have normally used materials in now that, I have access to fancier papers and scrapbook paper and whatnot. So my current journal is actually a vintage math textbook that I found in a thrift store. I wasn't looking for a math textbook because I don't really like to think about math when I'm not at school, but this was like the only one that was a good size and I really liked it, so that's what I'm going with right now. All you really need to start journaling is a notebook and something to write with. But if you'd like to try creative journaling, you can add almost anything you'd want into these journals. I like to add some photographs, maps, bits of fancy paper, postcards, packaging, business cards, magazine catalogs, or program notes. Basically anything that you feel like you'd like to add, you can add into your journal because it is completely up to you. One of my favorite things to add are some paint samples. Some of my favorites are moon mist, stardew, and soft cloud. I really like to write quotes in my journal. So, like quotes from books, from song lyrics, just random stuff I find online, things people have told me throughout the day. I just like to write them down in fancy lettering. I also like to journal about my current interests, like K-pop groups, my favorite songs or shows I like at that time, and also just random memes or anything that I am currently interested in. And I think that another thing is that you don't necessarily need to journal about things that happen in your life. Just journaling about things you like or how you're feeling or just whatever comes to mind, when you look back on these memories, they serve as a way to bring you back to who you are, who you were at that point in time, whatever you were interested in, and what motivated you each day. And they might seem really mundane or boring, but when you look back at these things like 2, 3, 5, 10 years later, you'll find that they share such beautiful insight into who you were at that moment.